Welcome back, everyone, to a new Bezan podcast. Myself, Ariala Verdi. I'm joined by my two colleagues, Pasha Hajian and Pejman Pars. How are we doing, guys?
Well, first, I'm doing very well. We're going to talk about it. Many congrats to, Pejman, a new member to the family. So many congrats, Pejman.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we have a new Bezan member ready to steer things up.
So there we have it. I don't have any news on my end, but looking forward to talking to you guys today.
No, Pasha, don't be humble. Could you tell us what you did? Was it yesterday, Wednesday or Thursday? You were on a meeting. Can you even talk about that online, or is it hush hush?
So some people might know, some people might not know. I'm a law student. I got an offer as a second-year law school student in America to work for a law firm yesterday in LA, sports and entertainment media, which relates to everything Bezan pretty much is. So that's pretty exciting. I appreciate that. And hopefully I'll do good enough just to give me a permanent offer to work for them. But nonetheless, the most important aspect than this is talking about Team Medley.
Fantastic, guys. Fantastic. And obviously, just from me, obviously we're very, very active on Twitter, and we've been, probably the most active on social media from that platform. And today we managed to reach a milestone of 3,000 followers, which is fantastic because it's something that we've been striving for, aiming for, and we've got it. So we appreciate that from bottom of our hearts, from everyone. Okay, we'll start the podcast because it's been a long time. It's been about 3 or 4 months since we did the last one. Of course, before we start off with the obvious topic of the Hong Kong game that was on Tuesday, we're going to speak about the recent unfortunate death of Sahar Khodayari, who passed away, because she burnt herself in front of the court in Tehran as a result of her getting a suspected 6-month jail sentence for entering a stadium for an Esteghlal match. Obviously, we know in Iran over the decades, many decades, women in Iran are not able to watch matches at the stadiums, and unfortunately there are repercussions if they do that. And this lady unfortunately got the wrong side of it, and she ended up actually taking her own life. So and obviously we've had people from Barcelona, Chelsea Football Club, Roma, who have come out on Twitter and they've given their condolences, and Gary Lineker. What do you guys think of this? Obviously it's been decades and nothing's really happened. Yes, we had a bit of success recently with some is the important word to use, women that were able to enter the game against, I think it was South Korea, or no, not South Korea, against Syria, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe before that. But they were able to enter a match. But that's a very small start. We've seen other sports able to let women in, but football's kind of been the same for many decades. Pasha, what do you think?
I honestly do believe that, unfortunately, sometimes tragic news like this needs to occur, that people need to wake up in order to do something. I mean, we know that President Infantino of FIFA, he traveled down to Iran a few months ago for the derby, and I mean, a lot of people were excited about that because they thought things were changed. But I always see FIFA as hiding their true identity as a way to basically say that we'll try our best, but we tried, What was more appalling to me was the fact that they just put out a tweet, a basic generic tweet that all of us could do, not with an official statement, coming up with a plan or anything to officially declare it upon their website what they're going to do. But we all know the issues that we have internally and outside of Iran. Where do you even begin with this tragic news? A girl pretty much my age, unfortunately, that just took her life by just doing that just for the love of the game. It's appalling. It's tragic. I can't even imagine what the parents are going through. But things do need to change. I mean, I know the sport ministry said that for the Iran versus Cambodia game prior to this incident that they're going to allow females into the stadium. Now, I think that's going to be definitely definite. But it's just so sad that something like this needed to happen for there to be backlash. But the most important thing I would say right now is that I really appreciate like the former players saying that we should boycott the stadium, that men shouldn't enter the stadium, just a way to, show awareness that we care about the situation. The biggest issue out of all is just FIFA incompetence. I mean, it's unbelievable that nothing has been changed, and I mean, we're powerless. I mean, what do we say? I mean, it's just every time I think about the situation, it's just unbelievable to me that somebody went to that extent of their lives to basically show how much they want to enter a stadium. And I mean, there's not much for me to honestly say, as much to say sending our condolences, which, I mean, why should we even do that? I mean, what's the point of us always saying, oh, let's send our condolences to the family and stuff, that over and over again? I think there needs to be a change,
And in terms of Pejman, like in terms of making a change, what can FIFA do? What can FIFA? I mean, of course, FIFA have their guidelines for what women's rights. They can enter stadiums. Of course, they have to enter stadiums. It's human right. They have to do it. It should be part of every country. But what can FIFA do to change this?
FIFA should simply ban Iran from all competitive games that FIFA and the AFC are holding, and also the league itself. You can say that it's like a collective punishment, but then again, we already have a collective punishment for the women not being able to enter the stadiums. If this means that Iran will miss the World Cup, the Asian Cup, playing important games for preparing themselves for the future, I think it's a really, really low price to pay if it means that the Iranian women are allowed to enter the stadiums. Unfortunately, as Pasha said, we can't really trust FIFA on this one, because FIFA itself is in a lot of mess, like almost daily. They have massive problems themselves for like bribing and getting paying for the World Cup in 2022 in Qatar, and they have not taken racism seriously, and like instead of that, like I think you've seen it daily, and like racist abuses get very low fines, but if you somehow have you mess with a sponsor or have another logo or a brand that's not FIFA approved, then you get severe punishment. So money talks as usual. So how can we make this an issue for with money talks? That's maybe can interest FIFA.
But it's a shame because we look at things like this. This is not a new thing. First of all, this has been happening for many, many decades. Women cannot enter stadiums in Iran. This has been happening for a very long. It's not new, but it's a shame that somebody has to die in order for something to happen. It's a shame that somebody has to take their life in order for an organization as big as FIFA to actually not even react, but to actually even comprehend that that change has to happen. Somebody should not have to kill themselves in order for the whole country to change. This is not how society has to work. And like you say, Pejman, if money's going to talk, then that's the way it's going to be. But it's, money can only go so far. Iran can certainly, if they want to, they can invest in their football, but they're not doing it because they have the money, but they're not going to do it. So something has to happen behind the scenes.
One last thing. FIFA have been to Iran, as Pasha said. Infantino was in Iran, and they were talking about this issue before, and the president of Iran and the Football Federation's president too. They have all talked about this issue, and like taking small steps, but the steps are invisible at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like you say, it's invisible. They'll identify it as an issue, but whether they actually make an impact on fixing it, no, because somebody has to die first. That's the thing.
Yeah, and right now, nothing has changed. Iranian women are still not allowed to enter the stadiums. The Iranian league have just started again after the international break. Nothing have changed, and this is one thing with Iranian politics that I don't want to go into too much, but I think it's necessary that these issues are for the Iranian people, for the Iranian women inside of Iran. And I do believe that the best and the real struggle is made inside of Iran with the people that are actually active instead of what can you say, the international community. But you cannot underestimate or don't care about the international community, because hopefully what this tragic event brought us is that the rest of the world is now watching Iran. They're watching them closely. Will this continue or not? Or how much do we need to feel ashamed of this? I personally really, I do believe that something will happen. Will it happen anytime soon? I don't really think so. I think the Football Federation will have some time until the next international break, and that's like in November, if I'm not mistaken. In October or November, I don't really remember. What will happen then? Iran will have their first home game in the World Cup qualifiers. Will they allow Iranian women there or not? Will be interesting to see, and what will they do? Personally, I don't have nothing against Iran missing out on the World Cup for this issue. But that's that. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on. So let's go to the squad that not Carlos Queiroz. We've been used to saying his name. That Mark Wilmot called up for the Hong Kong game that was played on Tuesday in Hong Kong. So I'll just quickly go through the squad itself, and we can maybe just pick out a couple of names. So the goalkeepers that he called up were Beiran Vand, Hossein Hosseini, and Mazaheri. The centre backs that he called up were Purari Ganji, Majid Hosseini, Hossein Kanani, and Siavash Yazdani. He called up Milad Mohammadi, Reza Ayan, Ghafouri, and then the first call up for his full national team, Mohammad Naderi, for the fullbacks. And then the midfielders, we had Haisafi, Omid Ibrahimi, Ahmad Nurullahi, and Ali Karimi. Then our attacking players, we had Jahanbakhsh, Torabi, Dejaga, Shojai, Amiri, Osmun, Sayed Manish, and Ansari Fard. I think Taremi was called up initially, but then he got injured, and obviously Qudus, as Pejman maybe we'll touch on quickly, he was banned for the issue with the deal with Huesca, etc. So we'll just quickly touch on maybe just one or two players. Actually, in relation to the Twitter questions, Hossein Kanani has been called up quite a lot recently. What do we think about him? Do you think his position is still useful in the team? Is he still somebody that you can consider like a third choice centre back? Obviously, he started against Hong Kong. What's his role? And that question was asked by our good friend, Team Millie Talk, Art, who I met this weekend. So, what do we think about Kanani?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take this one, then Pejman could speak. Listen, I always saw it as Kanani as more of a backup center back. I don't really rate him, to be honest with you. I think he's a very mediocre center back. I'm pretty sure if we played against a pacey team, especially number 9, that is extremely on par with pace, that he's going to just rip him apart in shreds. And listen, the thing I do want to say is that, I mean, how good of a center back, honestly, Morteza Purana Ganji is that he could build a partnership with Kanani, if that makes sense. You know, if Kanani is out of depth, I'm most likely would, therefore, I would believe that Morteza Purana can cover him. You know, as much as I believe I have more trust right now in Majid Hosseini, let's say, I see him as much as, let's say, if a center back like Kanani is doing a bad job, I still believe that Majid Hosseini will do a good enough job of covering up as opposed to more Sisopurali Ganji, and that's more of the attitude and everything I've seen. The biggest things that even under Carlos Queiroz and even now is that the lack of depth we have in center backs. Obviously, and now could be public information, is that on behalf of Gol Bezan, we did set up a meeting for Ryan Tafazoli at the time that Carlos Queiroz was at the helm. When they were looking at Ryan Tafazoli, nothing happened. I'm not going to name which staff member saw him. They visited him. They spoke to him. They even went to a game, but unfortunately the player got injured for a while, and there was no interest after that. Are they going to do that now? Is he a player under their vision? I've been told they are looking at him. I mean, how in depth, that's question. You know, Petersburg all the way now to the championship with Hull City, they should consider him. Is he going to be a good player for the national team? Obviously, there's question marks, but I do believe everybody should be given a chance. I mean, he definitely would be an upgrade in my eyes than Kanoni. It's not that I don't rate Kanoni. For me, it's just more of the fact that why don't we try to bring, let's say, a player like Iman Salimi? I mean, I don't know if his move to this Greek club has materialized yet, but for me, it's just more of the fact that we have an issue in center back that I don't really trust Morteza Pula Ganji all the time. You know, I feel like he even feels more comfortable playing with Majid Hosseini. Majid Hosseini is pretty young. He still hasn't adapted into that natural role as he has done for his club, and that's predominantly because of his injuries. And I know you'd rate him very highly, Arya, and now I could see why you do rate him, because I discussion with Mark. Winfried Schaefer at the time, he was head of SFL coach. He was a specific person. He told me that he thinks he'll be in Europe. But just to cut it short, I don't rate Kanoni, and I don't think he's the future. I'm pretty sure even Mark Wilmos and his staff members do see him as a backup, you know, but as of right now, I do believe that our center backs, if he play Majid Hosseini and Morteza Ganji at center back.
You touched on Iman Salimi just very quickly there. The other centre back that was called up was Siavash Yazdani, who's been playing quite well for Esteghlal and had a good season for Sepahan last season, and he's quite good. But I think Iman Salimi is if you haven't seen him play, he's very when he was younger, when he was playing in the U17s for Iran, him and Majid Hosseini were considered some of the most talented centre backs of their generation, that kind of time. But he's growing into a much more complete centre back over the last couple of years. And when he was at Parsa Junubi, he had a very good season. And even this season with Tarak Sazi, he's been fantastic. He was considered to get called up. Unfortunately, Siavash Yazdani got the call up ahead of him. But I think that you're right with Kanani just being a little bit off the pace. Okay, so we'll come on to centre defence later on. One question I've got for Pejman. Obviously, Syed Izzatullah, he didn't get called up this time around. Obviously, we know how good he is. He's a fantastic player. Izzatullah, you know, at the World Cup, he was one of our most influential players in the second and third game. At the moment, we've got Omid Ebrahimi, who's now at the same club as him in Belgium. What do we think about Izzatullah? What's going to happen with him in 5 years' time, in 4 years' time? Is he going to make the World Cup? Is he going to be the kind of player that we want? Or are we going to be stuck with Nurullahi and Ali Karimi as the kind of younger guys in that midfield?
Yeah, I think Izzatullah is younger than both of them, so...
Yeah, I know, of course, but I'm saying, like, will he keep on getting better, or what? Will it just kind of stagnate, or what?
Yeah, he left. He didn't have a good spell in Reading due to injury, and thank God that he left Russia. He was playing for these low teams and had some, lack of game time. I do believe a league like Belgium could be good for him. It's good competition. The best teams in Belgium are probably as good as the best teams in Russia, more or less. Maybe the Russians are a bit better in the top, but all in all, it's really good for him to gain some experience, because I do believe not only will he be vital for the Team Melli for the upcoming World Cup, he's captain material, and we saw that, as you said, in the World Cup when he was amazing. Because something I always I believe that Ezatoli have lacked was his speed caught the best of him and made him get a lot of unnecessary yellow cards, because he was kind of easy to dribble. But in the World Cup, and I was really surprised how good he was. And I do believe that we missed him badly in the Asian Cup. Maybe that was one of the reasons that Iran didn't make it to the final. Who knows? Ezatoli probably is his own biggest enemy, if you ask me. I mean, he's got this amazing, really good hype at a young age, but if you look at his stats at club level, it's not really that impressive. And this is something that we deal with a lot of young Iranian players. No matter how good they are, the hype can be a little bit too much. So he needs to show to himself mostly that he is that player that's a lot of people do see in him, and that the potential he have that Carlos Queiroz saw and took him out in the national squad when he was really, really young. That's the side that I hope we can see in Belgium, and hopefully he won't get injured, because that's something that's been bugging him a lot, and he's only 22 years old or something like that. So it's time for him to show his potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Ezatollah, he's a guy who, maybe in 6 years' time, 7 years' time, he should be one of the captains of the team, because of the position he plays. He's not maybe the personality for it yet, but he can get to that level.
Can I say one quick thing before we move on, which is very interesting to me? I want to get your thoughts on this, guys. Is that if you guys remember, prior to the other previous World Cup qualifiers, I believe even prior we played Turkmenistan, Carlos Queiroz solely invited Said Ezatollah because he just saw this kid is naturally talented. Said Ezatollah hasn't played in many matches because of his injury or because he was moving clubs. But Mark Wilmot didn't even call up Amir Abedzadeh and him, and I think that's solely because of playing time. So it's quite an interesting distinction to make, that in the fact that if you're playing, I think he's going to call you up. But what's interesting to me is that Said Ezatollah, at the time Carlos Queiroz, he had no club. We didn't know what his future. He was still getting called up, and he was starting. So it's interesting to me to see that despite the fact that Said Ezatollah is such a talented player, and Mark Wilmot knows that, he still didn't call him up because his future was still uncertain. He wasn't playing. So I found that really unique, distinguished between the two.
And yeah, it's the same with somebody like Desjardins, for example, who wasn't playing and he was still getting called up. And I think that's the difference between coaches. I think that will actually happen over time. I think give Wilmot, if he stays for 3 or 4 years time, I think you'll kind of notice that he'll start doing that as well, because national team coaches tend to have favourites. I think Wilmot's kind of going with the sort of character that he has no favourites just now. But give him 3 or 4 years, I think he will start to do the exact same thing. But at the moment, I think it's fair. I think it's fair because right now you have to be playing. National team level is no joke. You have to be having our best players, our fittest players playing. And at the moment, I think it's a good thing for him to do. But I think if you give him 3 or 4 more years, I think he will start to be the same as Queiroz in terms of he will call up players who don't play for the clubs, etc. But yeah, it's a good point. Abedzadeh is not playing for Maritimo. Should he be getting called up? I mean, I don't know, because Mazaheri is playing regularly. Niazman and Hosseini are playing regularly. They're doing okay, whereas he's not even playing a game. So, you have to make a judgment call on that. It's what kind of coach you are, what kind of player you want, what kind of level you want them to be at, fitness-wise, etc. The last point I want to make on this squad, just before we kind of go on to the Hong Kong game, is one player that's kind of been in and out of the squad over the last maybe 2 years is Ali Qolizadeh, somebody who, like, we know he's a great player. He's got fantastic ability. He's got great understanding of, wing play, coming inside, creating chances, scoring goals. He's been in Europe for, I think, just over a season and a half. And I think Qolizadeh is a guy that we need in the national team. The wingers that we had in this call-up that he made was Jahanbakhsh, Torabi, and like Vahid Amiri and Dejaga. And Vahid Amiri and Dejaga, they're good players. I'm not saying they're bad players. They're good. They've played in Europe for many, many years. But when does it come when you're gonna say I've got a winger playing for my national team and he's 33 years old? You know what I mean? Wingers need to be young people. They have to be quick, energetic, fast, creating chances, and they have to be able to play at a top level. Dejaga, when he was playing against Japan, etc., even against China, he wasn't as impressive as he was against the lower ranked teams in the Asian Cup. There comes a point where these players need to be not I'm not saying they shouldn't be called up, but there has to come a point where these guys have to kind of start going eventually. Mertad Mohammadi is playing in Portugal. He's scored 3 goals. We have to get these guys in. We have to start getting these guys in because this national team, Queiroz always said it, this national team is not a team where there's doors always open. You have to open doors for these players. And like you were saying about Kanoni, if he's not playing good, why are you playing him? And it's like we have to start progressing these players and bringing in new players. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the.
Can I just say something really quick about the squad and then we can move on?
Sure.
I think the time will come when the generation change and these old players, I think they will leave. I'm not that worried, to be honest. I think it's kind of smart of Wilmot's not removing influential players such as Masoud Shojaei just yet. Maybe he will understand that it's time for him to leave soon enough anyway. Or maybe he will just, in good time get the cut. Starting off as a new coach and cutting off these players could put some pressure on you that you don't need at this moment. And playing against teams like Hong Kong and Cambodia and Bahrain, you can manage with that squad anyway. So I do believe that for the next round of the qualifiers starting next autumn, hopefully we have a more solid squad with those players out. And this also made me think about when Ali Daei became the head coach of the national team. By then, I won't say his enemy, but Reza Enayati was in the national team then, and he and a lot of other players felt like they missed their spot in the national team because of Ali Daei was a striker a bit too long, maybe 3-4 years at least played when he shouldn't have played. The first thing Ali Daei did when he took over the team was that he let Reza Enayati actually play, and I believe he even started a game or two when Ali Daei was in charge. So it was a smart move from him because it didn't look like it was personal, and Enayati couldn't do anything. And when he got the cut, nobody said why and asked for Enayati. Maybe that would be the case with Masoud and Ashkan and maybe even Omid Ebrahimi too, and Vahid Amiri. So we'll see. That was that. You can continue.
No, you're right. And obviously, Pejman Montazeri took the initiative and he retired. So hopefully, I'm not saying they should retire, but hopefully there comes a point where the sort of old guard, they go to their clubs and they kind of let the national team become a bit more youthful. Okay, so just the game itself, we all watched the game. The game ended 2-0 to Iran. The goals coming from Sadar Osman and Kariman Sarifard. Not much to say from Hong Kong. They created a couple of chances. There were times where our defence didn't look particularly organised. bit worrying against a team like Hong Kong. We sort of saw some glimpses of maybe not so, from Jalan Bash in particular. He wasn't sharp. That could be down to not having much game time. Yes, he got the assist, but he wasn't particularly on the ball. He wasn't really getting on the ball as much. He didn't look good in my opinion. And from Sardar Osman, we seen him, because he's playing so much, how much he got on the ball. We expect the complete opposite, because Jalan Bash is more of a deeper player. He's a winger, whereas Osman's a striker. But he got on the ball way more than Jalan Bash did. He was almost like a playmaker at some time. So it kind of showed who was kind of fit, who was not fit, who was match fit, who was playing regularly for the club, and you can tell who's not. What did we think about the game? What did we think about particularly, our attacking, in an attacking sense, against a team like Hong Kong? What did we see that we were impressed by, Pasha?
I mean, initially it was very critical, as you guys know. I thought we were very wasteful, to be like we were forcing a lot of things. But then when I thought about it a little bit more, I was just like, it was a long travel, the humidity, playing in a time that, there's a lot of interesting things are unfolding in Hong Kong by itself because of the protests in regards to human rights and everything. But one thing that really caught my attention was, I think Rami Rezaian is the most happiest player out of all these guys. That's more because he always sees himself as a really attacking player. And I think Mark Wilmot's basically letting these guys attack, and for him to go running down up the pitch, I think was the most interesting to see, in the sense that, obviously this was Hong Kong and it was expected for us to beat them by 3 or 4 goals, even though the result was 2-0, is that I do believe that there's signs of attacking football. Even Babak Golri said it on this podcast that we don't necessarily know what kind of sense or identity this team is going to have. But the identity so far is that this is not going to be a very compacted team. It's going to be more of a free-flowing team. But then again, as we saw, Hong Kong had nearly equalized couple of times. One or two little silly mistakes from our center back could have resulted into So that's the thing, is that I don't know how attacking Wilmot is going to really be with this team, because if we're playing this attacking, the downfall to that is our defense. And as we saw, we didn't really do a good job. I mean, which player really stood out? I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you, but I mean, Osman keeps scoring, so that's always good to see. He's been freaking fantastic for his club. Probably arguably the best striker right now in the Russian league. There's been talks even about that. But I don't know, what's your takes on it, guys? I mean, what did you think about it, Pejman?
Well, one thing that stuck in my mind was the thing that about Osman. He was, like a central midfielder, going down, getting the ball and then moving up. I don't know if that was something that Wilmot have told him, or it was due to his high confidence that he wanted to be involved in the startup of the game, or what was the main reason of that? That kind of things might work against Hong Kong, but when we play against Iraq or even Bahrain, I don't know if that's such a good idea, because Sardar Osman, although he's really good in front of the goal, but being a playmaker from the beginning, that's why we have Said Izzatullahi. That's why we have Omid Ebrahimi, Ehsan Haj Safi, even Ali Karimi. Let those guys do what they can do the best. I don't know about this. I think Osman wanted to do everything and be involved. It's just a game against Hong Kong. I don't know how much you can take from it. As you said, they had a couple of chances to score, but it's a football of 90 minutes. Sooner or later, you will have some opportunities. Iran should have scored a couple of more goals, sure, but I never felt that Team Melli was threatened during the entire game. Of course, there were 2 opportunities. That happens.
Now, a question I have for both of you guys is that obviously we know that it's been a very difficult time prior to Jalan Bash for the club. He's playing for Brighton FC. As we all know, it's a team that is top tier in the English Premier League. New coach, the same coach that had a great spell, when Sahar Khodayari was playing for him, Graham Potter. He's been a little tough on the player, and that's because why he just wants to see how much he wants it. And what did you guys really make out of his performance? I know he assisted for the second goal to Kariman 35, if I'm not mistaken. What did you guys think about him? I mean, I sometimes realize, even it's a great point that Pedro made, that sometimes I was almost dropping back in the midfielder, and then I would see that there's a John Bashton was shift as a false nine. Is that like a sort of role that he might potentially play as opposed to confused players? I was more dropping back, and you got, Ayrza Jamash playing as a false nine like he did sometimes for Azad Alkmaar. I mean, it's interesting, but what did you guys think of his performance, and what do you think about Ayrza right now?
I think the first of all, the thing with Osman, I think Osman's position in that game was very much down to him having tons of space. And because they were sitting so deep, he had to come into midfield and receive the ball. But I think, speaking about Jahan Bash, it's a tough situation for him at Brighton. He's not playing. And, as a professional footballer, you have to be playing regularly to get your fitness levels up, you get your match fitness up. But for him, it's not a problem because he's a naturally, fit guy. He's going to be training in the training ground, for matches. But you could tell that he wasn't particularly ready to get on the ball every single time, because he didn't have that match fitness, as they call it in football. You're not ready to receive the ball all the time, and you can see he was shyer than he was in regular. If you watch the game against Syria, he played in Tehran. He was pretty much everywhere. He was playing on the left, on the right, behind a striker. He was rotating everywhere. Whereas against Hong Kong, he was stuck to the right hand side. The kind of way we see him for Brighton, and he was looking a little bit unmotivated in some ways. I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm just trying to say what I saw. And also, the goal that he created for Kariman 35, that's what we want to see. We want to see him do that. We want to see him not be afraid of taking on the fullback and getting crosses in the box, where something he doesn't really do as often as he should. And if he does, he'll create goals. So he has to become more confident, more, he'll have to be a player who wants to get on the ball. Because if you don't, in the Premier League, you cannot hide. If you hide, you won't get a pass. And I think that's something that he has to try and learn as a young player still. Just be more confident. Just try and get on the ball, because even against Hong Kong, you're going to struggle. So he has to do more, but he will get there. I'm sure he will.
I don't have much to add, actually. I agree with almost everything that Arya said, and we or Mark Wilmots need to bring out the best out of Jahan Bash, and hopefully his confidence in England will boost when he gets some more playing time.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much done with the analysis. There wasn't really much else in the game. Yes, we got 2 goals. Yes, they had a few chances, but other than that, it was pretty much, it was one way for Iran. They had to win the game. The thing we'll go on to next, just to finish off this podcast, is just some Twitter questions. So, the one question we got here for us is, how do you feel we played defensively?
Yeah, great question. I mean, listen, Iran isn't a team that is disciplined in all aspects of the game, right? So under Carlos Queiroz, we're very disciplined in the back, but then obviously, we always had hard time scoring, which tends to be some issue that we always tend to have. Now, we were attacking, but then what's going to be the downfall to that is, mistakes in the back. I think when that situation gets fixed, and let's not forget, guys, these players are getting used to a new style of team. They're probably still in the Carlos Queiroz mentality of play compact. And now, as we see, they got to get used to this attacking style of game, and these center backs, especially, and even our midfielders, how well are they going to play compact? There's got to be a lot of, leadership in the department for them to have, talking to one another, what to and what not to do. There's always going to be repercussions regardless. But like Pejman pointed out, is that how are we really going to play against the likes of, Iraq and Bahrain? That's what's interesting to me. Obviously anybody would predict us to win this match, even if we play with our B team, and that's no offense to Hong Kong. It's just how things are. But it'll be interesting to see, how that will shape up. Obviously, see where Mehdi Taremi really fits into the team. Is he gonna play him as, alongside Osman, or is he gonna play him as a left winger? Because he's been on brilliant form for his new club in Portugal, and he's been, I would say, the most informed player for us in the national team. And what a big loss he was in the Asian Cup semifinal against Japan. So there's a lot of question marks, obviously, but then comes down to, if we're gonna attack, what's going to be the basis for the defending. And as we saw, we make a lot of silly mistakes. And if it was another team, if it was Iraq or Bahrain, I promise you they would have scored.
Yeah, but I've got to say, Majid Hosseini was very good, as usual.
I was almost surprised that he didn't show up sooner.
No, okay, final question. Actually, this is just for myself to Pejman. We've mentioned him a few times on the podcast. We saw what happened to him recently with Salman Kudus. Of course, he got banned from all footballing activity. What's happening with him, Pejman?
Well, Salman isn't in a good place regarding football. As we all know, he got this major fine from FIFA, 4 million euros, and a ban from all football in 4 months. And from my knowledge, what I understand is that they won't accept this, so to say. So they will, what you say in English, appeal it, Mr. Pasha.
Yeah, they'll appeal it. Yeah, they'll appeal it.
Yeah, they're gonna appeal it.
Yeah, because, and here's one thing. I think they know that they have made a mistake, and that's wrong. But I do believe that they think that the fee that they got, the punishment, is way too hard. So I believe that they will try to appeal it to make it, instead of 4 months, just make it 2 months. And the fee here of 4 million euros. Is it really correct that it should be Salman, or it should be his former club, or is it just too much in general? Because of my knowledge, I don't know if any player have gotten such a high penalty fee from FIFA. But I don't know much more, to be honest. I talked a little bit with Salman and his agent, and they want to ride out the storm quite calmly and don't really want to interact with media or do any statements, which in my opinion is wrong.
It's a big mistake. Yeah, it's a big mistake.
Yeah. I think it's good that they don't go out and say that, we're innocent or anything like that, because obviously there seems to be enough proof. But they need to be a little bit more diplomatic and need to show themselves, because right now they're like the main stars of a movie that they are not even able to do anything about. The characters are written by their enemies, so to speak, and they just deal with it. And Salman and his agents, or no matter how good they are and what they've done, it doesn't look good when you do this with the Huesca deal, although his agent wasn't involved, and that's another story. Why did you do this without your agent, Salman? And also almost going to Brentford and then canceling it. Why did that even become news? That shouldn't come to the media's attention at all if you're almost close to signing, because we all know that clubs and players, they negotiate all the time, but we don't know it until the very last day or when something is announced. It doesn't look good. He looks unprofessional as a football player, and with the relationship he has with his agents. So he will miss probably the next World Cup qualifier, which I now checked that it's the 10th of October, home game against Cambodia. So, first of all, will there be any females attending to the in the stadium? Second, will someone be a part of that squad? I don't think so, because the appeal will take some time. And he's losing his place in the national team. That's a really pity because of this. We'll see what happens. And if I get any more news, I will do my best to let you guys know.
Fantastic. So, as you just touched on there, our next matches are against Cambodia on the 10th of October and the 15th of October against Bahrain. Matches are played at home against Cambodia and then away against Bahrain. Just to finish off, it's good to be back on the podcast, because it's been quite a long time. Hopefully we'll have one either coming out at the end of this month, or we'll just see you for the Cambodia and Bahrain games. As we said, hopefully, everything gets sorted with women going to stadiums. We'll give our final condolences to Sahar Khodayari's family and friends. And hopefully we will see you very soon.
Hi, this is Kat, and you're listening to Bezan, and I hope you continue listening to their amazing podcast. Thank you all for the support. Love you, Bezan.